What if I told you there's a way to generate even more income on your primary residence? Today, we're going to talk all about ADUs, what they are, how to get them, and get you pumped up to build an ADU on your property.
Hello, and welcome back to the Happy House Hacking Podcast, the podcast designed to help you on your path toward happy homeownership. On today's episode, we are going to talk about ADUs, what they are, how you can get one, and whether or not an ADU is right for you. So, what is an ADU?
An ADU stands for Accessory Dwelling Unit. So we're going to use that interchangeably today. We want to make sure that stays in your brain. ADU, you've probably heard it forever and never actually knew what it meant. But it's an accessory to the dwelling of your home. So it doesn't change the zoning of your property. You don't end up having a multifamily property zoning because you have an ADU. It's essentially another residence that's either attached or detached to a main house.
And when California recently changed the laws in regards to ADUs, it was a game changer. It's opened up the opportunity for people to add a second unit, add in-laws quarters or a mother-in-law suite, where previously zoning just didn't allow for that. And so this really has been a game changer for a lot of people. And so today we're going to talk about ADUs and how to get one and really what that process looks like.
Mm-hmm. And keep in mind too that an ADU doesn't have to be a place that you have to rent out. Like you said, Owen, it could be a place for your in-laws to move into. It could turn into an office. We are, of course, advocates for using it for rental income as a way to offset your living expense. But that's not the intention behind why California has passed all of these amazing ADU laws.
And when you think of accessory dwelling unit, there's actually a lot of different variations of it. It could be attached to your primary house.
Mm-hmm.
You could convert some existing space into a separate living quarters. Or you could even do ground up construction, or even use a prefabricated home and put that on your property as an ADU. So there's a lot of different variations of what accessory dwelling units are and how you can get those set up on your property.
Yeah, and California in 2020 changed a lot of the rules to make them a lot more favorable for current homeowners and as an easier way to make them happen. Even this past year, they came out with certain counties have pre-approved ADU plans. So you just stop by the office, pick up the plans that you want, and run with it. So that saves you a few $1,000s on architect fees and a couple months of time waiting for it. So California has really made it so much more accessible as a way to generate more housing for people, because that's exactly what we need. And ADUs are not designed for short-term rental purposes. You are not allowed, per California rules, to do Airbnb for less than 30 days on an ADU. You can do anything 30 days or more, but you cannot do anything fewer than 30 days.
Mm-hmm. And our first experience with ADUs started back when we had a rental property that was a 3-unit property. It was a legal triplex, and there was a unit that had been illegally added to the basement. Someone back in the 80s had put in, a sink, a kitchen, and they turned it into a unit. But it was illegal. It wasn't permitted. It didn't have a certificate of occupancy. And so the owner at that time had been renting out this unit illegally. And then once the city found out about it, they came in and they forced the owner to tear it out. And they took that unit off the market. And then it sat for 30 plus years, totally vacant, unrented. And it was a space that had been built for someone to live in. And so unfortunately, the town just didn't have that extra rental unit. And the reason that they couldn't have that legal unit there is because parking.
Mm-hmm.
The property only had parking spots for 3 people. And so therefore, the city would only approve up to 3 units on that spot. Now, here's one of the beautiful things about these new ADU laws is that they've removed that parking requirement. You can take away parking and you don't even have to replace parking with these new ADU laws. And so because of that universal change in zoning statewide, it gave us, the new owner, the ability to go in and convert that basement into a legal unit, which we were then able to rent out.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. We were one of the early adopters to go through an ADU under that new law. So we were trailblazers. It took a lot longer than it takes ADUs to be approved in our city today, but it was definitely worth it. And even though it was a long year and a half process with many meetings with the city and just making sure we were all on the same page, it provided a wonderful space for someone who's very, very happy there. And the cost at the end of it, over the next 3 years, it will be paid for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an incredible return on investment. And this is something that we really want to stress to people. And we'll get more into that when we talk about why to do an ADU. But let's first talk about just a few more of those California specific rules.
Yeah.
So one of the rules that came out statewide is the mandate that local municipalities must approve ADUs within 60 days of receiving a plan from a homeowner who wants to put an ADU on their property.
Right. That's amazing because that means that the government has to prioritize those plans and they can't ignore them and say, oh, sorry, I don't have time for it. No, California is mandating that you make time for it. You have 60 days or else it's going to get approved anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's illegal to deny it. So anyway, a lot of cities, though, they've had a hard time just because there's been so much influx that there still is a delay and they're not quite getting these approved in 60 days. But technically, they should be getting these plans approved within 60 days.
Right. Yeah, so that's a big plus. The parking, like you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
we don't need to factor in parking in ADU plans anymore. So even if you aren't taking away space, you still don't have to provide a parking spot.
Right.
So that's another plus.
And now let's talk more about those pre-approved plans you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does that really mean? What is a pre-approved plan and what would the cost savings be on that?
Well, let's say I had a garage space that I wanted to convert, and depending on where the property was located, if it's in city jurisdiction or if it's in county, then I could go to the office and say, okay, great, I want to convert my garage to a 1-bedroom ADU. And they say, great, here's the plan. Go ahead, it costs X amount of dollars and go take it to a general contractor. You start the permit process. So it's really simple. Now, our most recent ADU, our garage conversion, unfortunately, the city that our property is in does not allow pre-approved plans at this time, but the county as a whole does. So because we weren't in county limits, we weren't able to move forward with a pre-approved plan. So we hired an architect who was fantastic. It did take us a few months, though, and a couple extra $1,000s to just get this plan approved. So in the future, once our city does start allowing the pre-approved plans, it will make it even easier for our neighbors to be able to do something similar.
Yeah, and that's huge cost savings. You're probably looking at $5,000 to $8,000 in cost savings just by having pre-approved plans, plus the time. It took us probably 3 to 4 months just working with the city, getting our plans approved on making sure that this project could go through. Imagine if you could just go down to the county or the city and pay them a flat fee and then pick up those plans and start building your new ADU.
And the city was very responsive. So they were definitely within their time limits of being able to address our situation. It just needed some refinement. So that's where the pre-approved plans, if you're in an area that allows that, that would be one of the best ways to go about doing it, where you are just, it's like a fast pass to the ADU.
Yeah, fast pass to ADUs in your backyard. And they have different versions. They've got the 400 square foot, the 600, the 800, and even the 1,200 square foot. And that's just in San Luis Obispo County, where those are pre-approved. You can go and build that. So that's incredible. And that just saves people time and money. And as this becomes more popular and gets more widely adopted, then it's going to become even more of a a trend that we see.
Yeah. So if you are in the process or wanting to start the process of building an ADU, you want to make sure that you have the right team. And we always come back to who you work with matters, right? And the general contractor that you hire is going to be someone that you are going to want to be in good rapport with. We strongly recommend choosing a contractor who will help you through the permit process, where they are the ones in touch with the city or the county, wherever you're located, to walk you through that process so you get the permit. They meet the inspector, they show the inspector everything. This contractor needs to be knowledgeable, this contractor needs to be timely, this contractor needs to have strong integrity and good ethics, so that way you are guaranteed to get this project done and approved by the city.
Absolutely. Yeah. When we were building out our most recent ADU, converting our garage, we got 3 different quotes from different contractors. And you want to do that. You want to get a different feel for how much it's going to cost. And oftentimes, the cheapest guy isn't always the best guy. We did have a quote that came in lower than the contractor we chose to go with, but who you work with matters. And we just kind of didn't get the right vibe or the right feeling from one contractor that might have cut corners. There are things that we just didn't feel like would really make it an ADU that we would be proud of. And since we live right next door to the construction zone, we want to make sure that the contractor and the crews that were coming through were people that we felt safe around and that would do a good job, since we have a family nearby while the construction was happening.
Yeah, so it's really important to just do background checks. Ask for photos of previous work they've done. I would also ask how many ADUs specifically has this contractor done before, because they are different than just everyday little construction projects. So you want to make sure that you're working with someone who knows all the ins and outs of this type of
Totally.
project.
Yes, so the contractor absolutely matters, and so does the architect you choose or the draftsman. And so, what's the difference between an architect and a draftsman? An architect is someone who's going to be more hands on and they're going to help you more with the project. And of course, that comes with a higher price tag. A draftsman, they can just create the plans for you and give you what you need, but then a lot of that work is going to be on your shoulders, going down to the city, making sure that we get the plan submitted. If there's any revisions that need to be done, you take that back to the draftsman, revise plans. So there are cost savings when using a draftsman, but you have to make up for that with some sweat equity and putting in some work and some labor. So for us, we decided it was worth the time and the money by hiring an architect who is well versed in the city that we live in and has done a lot of ADU projects. So they knew what to expect and they were able to handle all the revisions and get the plans approved. And they saw that whole process through to the completion, which was something we really, really liked.
Exactly. So those are the steps that we recommend you do first before getting started, is just identify your team. Who's your architect or draftsman and who's your contractor? Talk to them about your plans. You get going, get the approval from the city that you're in, get to work, come up with a timeline, and then you are essentially a project manager, right? You check in as much or as little as you want. If you're living on the property while the construction's taking place, it's a lot easier to just pop in and check on everyone. And then you also get to be involved with picking out the fixtures, right? If you are wanting to be totally hands off, then hire an interior designer and add that in to your fees as you're calculating your expenses. But otherwise, have fun with it. I picked out blue cabinets. I would love to live in a house with blue cabinets. And you know what? Maybe I will someday because it looked good in the ADU. So I would do it again. But have fun with it. You get to choose what your piece looks like. And that's what I really love about this type of project, is you get to experiment, right? One ADU may look like this. One ADU may look like that. And that's where you get to have a good time.
It was a good time. And Camille, she's got such good taste and had a great plan and vision for what the space would look like. I even said, oh, we don't need blue cabinets. Let's just get the Home Depot standard white and we'll be done faster. And yes, there was a little bit of a delay waiting for the extra weeks for the cabinets to come in, but it was worth it because the unit looks way better and it's just going to command a higher price when you get it rented out. So that is something to consider, is the quality of the products that you choose also matters when building something out.
Yeah. And I really believe that building an ADU is as easy as we're making it sound, because California has done an excellent job of making this more accessible for the average homeowner. All it takes is time and money. So, do you have the money available to make this happen? Do you
Mm-hmm.
have the time to wait maybe 6 to 12 months in order for this to be complete? Or do you need something a little bit more immediate? Then you might want to look at just a completely separate investment property. So, keep in mind that you'll want to work out the details of how you're going to pay your contractor and your architect. We believe in trying to just pay cash as much as possible. Other people are, they're interested in just taking out a loan right away, which you can do that. And you can do a mix of both. We've done a mix of both. You can take out a home equity line of credit, pay for a portion of it, pay cash for the other. You have options. And that's where we don't want the concept of how am I going to be able to make this happen hold you back from doing it. You just have got to find a way to pay for it, make it happen, because it's an investment on your property that you will always be so thankful that you have. So now we just need to ask ourselves, why build an ADU? What is the benefit? Why should people be doing more of this?
There's three major benefits to building an ADU. Number one is passive income. Number two is equity creation. And number three is extremely low cost. Going back to that first ADU we built, the total cost on that project came out to be only $43,000 to convert that space into an accessory dwelling unit, which we were then able to rent out and bring that unit back on market and provide housing for someone. And it's now generating $1,400 a month. And so that kind of return on investment is quite incredible, because within 3 years, we'll recoup the cost that it took to build that unit out.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it was converting an existing space, which I think is something that some people give us pushback on. They say, well, I don't want to lose space. I don't want to lose my garage. I love my garage. I park my cars there. I have my tools there. Okay, yeah, great. Then keep your garage. Find another spot on your property. So really the lowest cost of converting an existing space is there, more so than adding another unit that's going to be building from the ground up, and that'll be more expensive. So I know some people are pushing back on ADUs because they don't want to lose the space, but my response is, okay, find another spot on your property that will allow you
Mm-hmm.
to build from the ground up then.
Yeah. Yeah. Your backyard, even your front yard, at any spot, basically, you could put an accessory dwelling unit and have that going, uh, turn it into an income stream for you.
Yeah. And I think too, sometimes we hear, oh, well, I'm going to start the project and then I'm going to run out of money. So how do I finish it? And that is oftentimes a roadblock, right? Is figuring out the
Mm-hmm.
financing aspect. So some people are going to take out a construction loan and make that happen. Others might do a line of credit on their house in order to make that happen as well.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might pay cash. You can do a mix of all. We've done a mix of everything where we're paying half cash, half a line of credit,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just pay off the line of credit right after. So it really is an affordable way to make an investment, because maybe you're $50,000 or $150,000 in it at the end of the day. But where else are you going to get a brand new unit in California for $50,000 to $100,000? You're
Mm-hmm.
just not. You're just
Yeah.
not. That's not going to happen. You already own the land on your property, so put in a little bit more, and then you're going to
Mm-hmm.
make a return. And in 3 to 5 years, it'll pay for itself.
Absolutely. And that line of credit is something that is really a low cost way to do it, because right now the United States has a massive amount of equity sitting in their homes. Prices have gone up so much over the last few years that homeowners are sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity. And so let's just say the cost to build an ADU was $100,000. If you have enough equity in your house, you could take out a line of credit and borrow 100,000 to build that ADU and get it done quickly. And now you have to pay an interest rate, let's just say 6 to 8% on $100,000. Maybe that's $700, $800 a month that you're paying because it's interest only on lines of credit. You can pay back principal faster if you want to, which is what we recommend you do. But if you think about it, it's $800 a month payment. But what if you could rent out that accessory dwelling unit for $2,000 a month? You've covered your payment and you're generating an extra $1,200 a month, which you could then use to pay towards the rest of your mortgage or start to use to help free you up to have that lifestyle you choose.
Yeah, we are just such big proponents of building an ADU that we encourage you to sit down, start talking to people to make sure that this is going to work. Line up your team. You have an architect or draftsman, your general contractor, whoever you want on your team. Start lining those people up, get bids, get quotes, and make a game plan. If you know, okay, great, it's going to cost me $100,000 to convert the garage the way I want it to. When can I start? Okay, great. I'm going to start saving now and I'm going to begin construction at the beginning of next year. Awesome. Make a game plan and just make it happen.
Mm-hmm. So if your goal is to have financial freedom, passive income, retire early, an accessory dwelling unit is the way to make that happen. That's why we're so passionate about it. That's why we started this podcast. We want to help educate and inform more people on the benefits of ADUs and of house hacking. So thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of the Happy House Hacking Podcast. As always, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with other people who you think could get value out of it. Thank you so much for tuning in.